All right. Welcome, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. I'm your host, Faris Alami, and this is the Finjan Show. I'm really excited today to have a guest with us who's been just watching him over the last at least 15 years or so grow this growth wheel has been fun, and looking forward to having this conversation with him. With that, our guest today is David Madie. Thanks for coming, David.
Thanks for having me, Faris. I've been looking forward to have this conversation with you.
Yeah, me too. It's just exciting, and I can't believe it's happening finally. So
We
for
talked
those
about
who
it for
don't,
a while, yeah.
I know. For those who don't know who David is and what you do, I would love to maybe just tell them in a snippet who's David and what do you do for business?
Yes, so I am a lifelong entrepreneur since I was 15. I started one of the first internet companies in Denmark. We grew that to 100 people back in the early days of the .com era before we sold it to some investors. Then myself, I turned into a business advisor, and I was coaching and advising entrepreneurs for a while, but then everything changed or pivoted when suddenly Danish government, I'm from Denmark originally, came and saw the method I had developed for advising entrepreneurs, and they wanted to license that. And then my whole business changed so that from being an advisor myself, I ended up training other advisors. So what I do is having today a train the trainer program where I train business advisors in how they can help startups.
Wow, what a story. I mean, the truth is there's so much to unfold there, David. I'm not sure if this podcast will do justice, but maybe we could have an extended one. I've done that with a few people in the past where we could have a 1 hour overview of you walking me through your mind and heart and what went through to make this work. I mean, this is really just amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you, Faris.
So this, the business, and when was this? What year roughly? Just for those who are not familiar with you.
Yeah, so this business I've been running now for 15 years. So that started 2000 and around eight. At the same time where I migrated from Denmark to the United States. I've been living here for 15 years. So it's been a long run, and so has my other businesses. And I sometimes hear entrepreneurs who like switch from one thing to the other, and I'm just not that kind. I'm kind of sticking to it. And for the current one, I have to say that I have no investors in this business. I have no plans to. Even after 15 years, to me, it's still a startup in the sense that there's so much potential, so many things I want to do. So I think if someone is listening and they feel the same way, there are entrepreneurs like that. You don't have to switch around and exit all the time. There are certainly something to be said, I think, for sticking to a business for the long term.
Oh, for sure. I mean, you are definitely building a lot of equity, as you know, in the business, whether you at one point decide to sell or not. I mean, I always like to hear that, the story of the entrepreneurs, because it's not always just this, what makes the news, that I made it and sold it in 5 or 7 years or 10 years, whatever, and then I'm done or looking for my next venture. There are many wonderful entrepreneurs, amazing entrepreneurs, actually, that just owes it all the way till, they retire and whatever, and then they then either sell it or hand it over or combine with someone else. So strategic alliances. It's just amazing to hear those stories, because I really feel that that's what comes down to it. Those are probably the majority of the entrepreneurs globally are the ones who are just doing it every day and not looking to sell or exit.
Yeah, I guess so. And for certain business, I think when you're in tech and when you make software, it's like everybody else seems to be doing that. You hear so many stories about it. And I did exit my previous business, another software business. But I think what I realized is that it didn't really make me happy. After a couple of years, you're no longer in charge, and eventually, you look different on what needs to happen than the people who now own the company or has the majority. And I think, at least for me, it's very important to have the independence and the freedom, and to be able to take the business in a direction that not everybody might believe in at some point. But I follow my intuition, and I strongly feel that things are right, and I'm not always right, but at least I have the freedom to pursue ideas that I believe in. And many times it turns out that it was the right gut instinct, right? And that's the freedom I think you have when you still own your business. You can move on your instincts. You don't have to convince a board or an investor group or other owners. So that, at least this time around, has been my path.
That's great. David, as you know, these are micro I call micro podcast. So we move fast, and I'm sorry about that. There's just so much I'd love to learn more about this. I'd love to, before we take a break, I'll just put the question out for you, and when we come back from the break, we'll answer it. Owning a business, especially for this long, there are all kinds of ups and downs. I'd love to hear about one of your maybe downs and one of your ups, but we're going to take a break and come back and finish the conversation. So we'll give you a minute to think about it. Thank you so much. Thank you for tuning in. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone, and thank you so much for joining today's episode. I'm speaking with David Madie, who is the founder of GrowthWheel, and sharing with us his insights about his journey. David, thank you so much. Welcome back.
Thank you.
So what would be maybe one of your moments, and I'm sure there's so many, right? I always talk about it's a roller coaster, right? When you run a business, maybe you could share with us one of the moments where you felt the world is ending and you better figure out your backup plan.
Yes.
Maybe one of them, or just one of the fails.
Yeah, it's great to ask that question. I think that where all the learning is, it's also a hard question for me, and that's not because there has not been many downs or many errors and so on. I think it's because I choose to forget about them. So as I move forward, so I don't really stick around with them. So when you ask the question, I find myself going, yeah, what would that be? I really have to dive in and find out what those was. But I think I can immediately sense when I think about it that it always has to do with people's relations, right?
Okay.
It's always when something goes wrong with other people. And usually it's when you have certain expectations or you have a certain trust and you on your side feel that the trust is broken, or you can disagree with people on things, right? But at some point it's, the trust goes away, not because people are doing anything particularly untrustworthy, but you may not trust that you have the same perspective on the future. You may not trust that you can have a good working relationship or things of that nature. So I think one classic regret that I have, that I can be too slow in realizing when a relationship is no longer fruitful. And I heard someone say on a positive note once that, all these things we see in the startup world where partners come together and then they split, and there's a lot of damage done. People lose money. They waste a lot of time. There's contract about ownership and all these things. But what someone said to me, this is exactly how it's supposed to be. It makes sure that things change and people come in the right direction. So I think my largest regret has been when I had to depart with other people that I worked with and trusted, and for all kinds of reasons it's not continuing. But then I do find comfort if I had to terminate a contract, for example, that I know it's also better for the other person. The other person is going to get on a much better path than working with me. But certainly, Faris, it's always about those trusted, the trust that is no longer there. That's always the hard part.
Yeah, that's really interesting you say that, because I'm sure with people comes emotions, right? So it's not like a product that you don't like the product anymore. Now it's a relationship that can get damaged, and people have a lot of emotions about all that stuff. Right. Thank you so much for sharing that, David. That's really interesting. So now maybe it's the same moment that you realize it's, it's you're on cloud 9 and world is opening up and things are just never been better. Maybe you could share with us one of those moments where you felt like the world is opening.
Yeah, I certainly think that's when sometimes in business, things that you have dreamed about or envisioned, that those visions actually come true. And I can give some examples for me. So coming from Denmark, a very small country, where we managed to get a large contract with Danish government, which was certainly one of those things where you're like, I can't believe it. I just signed a 3-year contract with Danish government. That's amazing. So, those things you dreamt about, you envisioned, when they actually happen, I think is great. And even for me, and maybe for your international audience can imagine this for themselves, the idea of immigrating to the United States and starting a business here that is now larger than the one in Denmark is again something that I would dream of, but I wasn't really sure whether I would be successful in doing that. So I think coming to a point where you realize that, and now we have customers in 68 countries, so we come further along. And that all started with when I remember the first time I realized it is possible for my business to have clients internationally. That kind of opened up, because I think what it does is now all of a sudden you stand on a mountaintop and now you can see another mountain that you couldn't see before. That's the thrill. You suddenly get leveled up and now you can see beyond what you saw before. So that to me, I think, Faris, is some of the great moments.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, it's once you're on top of the hill, it's a different view than when you were climbing it.
Yes.
And then there's to your point, there might be more mountains out there than you thought initially. And now the question is, which one do you want to climb and at what speed?
Yes.
Congratulations. What an exciting story. David, clearly we can keep you here all day to unfold more. I just want to say thank you so much. If you were to reflect back on your personal journey 15 years ago, or even from your other businesses, and someone is dabbling with this idea, should I start, should I not start, should I do it, should I not do it? And if you want to give them this advice yourself today, and I know it's hard because I always people, what you know today and what you knew 15 years ago is not the same. You're also not the same person. But if you were to go back and knock on the door and say, let me just give you a piece of advice, take it or leave it, what would that be if you were to leave it behind today? What would that one thought or one word or one idea be?
Yeah, that's another good question. I think that I would try to encourage myself to allow myself to think bigger. I think that so many of us have resources beyond our own confidence. It's kind of a humility. It's a modesty. It's not, and certainly the opposite of just thinking you can do everything is not helpful. But I think for many entrepreneurs, maybe they don't yet have the confidence and the self-esteem and the perspective to realize the potential they have. So I would tell myself, you can do it. Others have done it. You may not do it right the first time. You may want to change. You learn, you make mistakes, you do something different. But if you are passionate about things, and I would see myself as being that, if you're passionate enough about what you're doing, you're going to find a way, one way or the other. This is going to go beyond, and I'll try to encourage myself and others with that message.
Beautiful. I love that. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. Thank you so much for sharing your insight. And for those who are joining us, thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Faris Alami. This is the Finjan Show. Until next episode, have a good day.